everybody doing? How's your mom and 'ems? It's good to hear. So we're back working on some stuff again. It's been a really long time, and mostly because, like I've said previously, when that truck motor took a shit on me, my whole world got diverted to that, and I've redone motor, underbody, engine bay. We even did some interior work a couple days ago. Got the whole back of that tore out and cleaned up. And the body's been all refreshed in the driveway right out there in between rainstorms and cold weather. But it's a blast. I freaking love that truck. There's 330,000 miles on it. You probably heard me talk about it all the time because that truck has been my life. I'd get rid of everything else I own before I ever let that truck go. It's been everywhere with me and through all kinds of shit. So it's been fun. It's finally getting the attention it's deserved. Ever since I got the house in the garage now, I can work on things that don't necessarily have to be wrapped up. You know, by the time I got to go home in the evening or something, if I'm working on something, when I'm in the middle of something in the driveway, it can sit there. You know, shut the garage door and go inside. It's gonna be sitting right there the next day. So now, that's enough of that. I did go racing, however. Many of you probably saw over the winter I did refresh the motor on this bike. We had some cylinder head damage. Bottom end, actually, bearings, everything looked good. So we did a little bit of an experiment. I refreshed that head on my bench. New guides, valves, springs, retainers, keepers, seals, the whole deal. Thankfully, when the damage happened to the head, it didn't cause any valve seat failures because I can't do seats in my garage. I did guides and everything. I can handle that here. If it needed any major resurfacing or chamber damage or valve seats, we would have been a little bit of trouble. I do got a couple spare heads. I could have put one together. Excuse me. Excuse me again. But we would have been in some trouble. Luckily, I got that refreshed here. You probably saw some of them videos. And I reused bearings in the bottom of this motor. The motor was completely stripped. We were looking for debris or anything that might have gone through the motor. Anytime you hatch one of these things, anything goes wrong. So many oil galleys in these things, you got to look for debris because it'll hang around and haunt you. So we managed to put this thing back together, and it ran. And that's when we had issues with the truck. And late start to the spring, our track had a new surface put down. Weather was shitty. They never got to get the concrete cured fast enough and in time. Then with the weather, they were having a hard time even being open to get like cars down the track to get like a surface base down. So we just had a slow start to the year, which was fortunate for me because I was doing so much work on the truck, but the bike was always ready to go. And we went and raced at the MKE Real Street Takeover, the spring race, and they had some classes running on Friday night, and then I was going to be racing. Our class would run Saturday. Friday they were going to allow some test and tune a little bit before they started they had 3 classes, I believe, to run Friday night. It ended up being kind of questionable weather. I needed to make sure I got down there in time to get fuel. I was running late after work. I opted to not take my bike down on Friday night and test. Bike was complete, ready to go. Time frame, I thought we were going to get washed out. Get to the track, ended up being pretty decent, but during their 3 classes they were running on Friday night, they had a pretty major oil down in one of the cars in one of the bigger class that they had running. They couldn't get the track cleaned up in time. I didn't actually see what happened. I heard it had something to do with an engine blowing up. It broke a windshield or broke T-tops out of the car, but there was basically oil, glass. It was just like a mix. Everything was on the track. They couldn't get it cleaned up in time for Friday night. So now they had to finish that big class from Friday night. Got pushed into Saturday morning. Saturday morning was going to be my last opportunity to test before our race started actually on Saturday evening. So they threw all testing out the window. They were going to finish Friday night's program, run right into Saturday. So I had 0 test passes, which it didn't really make me nervous, other than I hadn't been down the new surface yet, so I didn't know what to expect for data on the track. Whatever, I don't take this too serious. I was just going to wing it. I wasn't stressing about anything. So first pass on this bike since basically the last pass when I wrecked the motor. I didn't even get to ride this thing down the road at all. It went straight from the lift to the trailer to the track. So First pass was going to be first round. The bike class at this event it's a street tire, any clutch, rocket after that. And a lot of people have been complaining they want just a hand clutch class. There's enough hand clutch racing to go around the world. This event is supposed to bring out the fastest and the most like elite bad motherfuckers that we can bring out. And we got them. We ended up with the biggest class that event has had yet. I believe there was 20 bikes. 20 bikes. I think one might have dropped out the last minute. 20 bikes. But every one of them was fast. There was absolutely no ducks. It was awesome to see. And I love seeing that because, like I said, I don't care if I win the event or go out first round. Obviously, winning the event is more fun because you get more passes. That's all I care about is making passes. Winning the event, get a little money, it's fun. It's not why I do any of this. If you're racing to win and get rich, you're in it for the wrong reasons, I think, anyways. But anyway, I thought, let's do it. First round draw, the reason I'm doing a kind of a recap here is because I got 0 video and 0 pictures taken. And I was kind of hoping after the event, usually people have videos and pictures and stuff, they'll send me or tag me and stuff, and you can piece together your night based off of everybody else's media. There was none of that for this event. It kind of sucked. And some of the videos I've seen, they actually omitted the bikes entirely. So if you're a race photographer and you go to an event, do the promoter a favor and cover the entire event, because when you leave out a class, it makes it harder to grow that class because now nobody knows that class was there. So bad on me for not taking control of that and filming more of it and giving the bike some coverage. There's a few people I don't really get along with, and then that's not really on me, it's on them. But I would have covered them. We just didn't know we were going to get kind of skunked on the coverage. Anyways, first round I got another Turbo Busa Fuel Tech bike with a hand clutch in it, actually, because he actually built the bike to run Real Street. It's a fast bike. I don't want to throw times out there. I can look at data and tell you real close to what my bike runs without it, the ET or timing system on. I struggle to get that out. Anyway, yeah, no bike to be taken lightly. It was a good race. I think I left on him, and then from what I heard, again because there was no video, from what I heard it was a pretty close race. I just happened to get out on him, and that's kind of where it stayed. Second round, I drew. Any of you guys that are on the internet, you might know Portec Bill from Portec, Bill DeShong. If you ever get to talk to that guy, what a freaking character! Awesome dude. Actually, all the guys that came up from like Indiana to run this event, there was, I believe, 4 for sure, might have been 5. I'm pretty sure there was 4, but just awesome dudes. So I ended up getting Bill second round, and kind of the same thing. I think Bill, he had said that he had never really run like on a flashlight type of race before, or wasn't real familiar with it. So, and I've done a bunch of these, so I think I did leave on him. It wasn't by a bunch. I won't say I just I gapped them out of the hole. That's not my thing. I think I happened to leave early on him, and it's a nitrous motorbike, and it runs really good. We were watching him. He did make some passes on Friday night. That bike moves. That's a cool bike too. But just a nice dude to race. It's fun when you get to race dudes that you can basically crack jokes the whole time. I told him in the staging lane there was a little bit of dew setting in, and I was joking around. I was going to draw penises in the dew on his tail section, but the paint was too nice. I didn't want to mess it up. But anyway, yeah, I got out on him. I heard him, so he was with me the whole time. I heard him or I don't know if he was coming. I just heard that he was there, so I didn't lift or do anything different. I was struggling a little bit throughout the night. After the first pass, I noticed the motor making a noise, and it wasn't a knock. It just had like top end noise. And seeing as how I redid all of the cylinder head stuff, I was a little concerned, but not really, because I can hatch this thing and whatever, we'll get it fixed. So I didn't want to purposely blow nothing up, but I did decide first round when I noticed the track was pretty green. I ran my softest tune that I have for the bike. It makes 16 pounds max, and it actually comes in kind of some stages. So it'll come in, leave on like 5 pounds, and it'll ramp pretty quick to about 10. And it levels off just a little bit past the 60, right about where I make the shift. And then it comes in pretty quick up to 16 pounds. I'm going to try to stop saying I'm sorry. So that was the tune. I opted to just let it ride the entire night. I didn't go into the clutch. I didn't change the tune. I never even looked at a data log until recently. That race was like 4 weeks ago at this point. I didn't want to hurt it. I wanted to at least get through the event and just kind of, we're going to let it ride and see how far we go on the soft tune up. Like I said, literally, it's the softest one I got. I can show you the data logs, but it doesn't really prove nothing because I can bring up data logs from anything. But that's what it was. It's 16 pounds, 16-pound ramp. Nothing on the scramble for that tune-up because it's meant to be the I'm going to get down or just need to make a pass kind of tune-up. So, I mean, it's not. I'm not trying to downplay it. Like I wasn't putting any power into it, and I'm just so much faster than everybody else. Blah blah blah. It's a decent tune. It's just the softest one I have that has worked very well on no prep surfaces. And that was the same tune-up I ran. I ended up. I probably shouldn't get too far ahead yet. Let's still talk about racing Bill. So, anyways, yeah, I ended up beating Bill. I think it was pretty close at the finish, but we were dodging weather and a couple of wrecks and oil downs kind of throughout the event. Ended up getting it all in. I believe there was one class, maybe, I think it was one class they had to split just because it got late. We hit curfew, and I couldn't get it done. But everything else, the fewer vehicle count classes, they did get finished. But after Bill, I drew a nitrous Grudge Busa out of Illinois. It's a fast bike. I believe the owner was tuning it. Wasn't riding it, and I think it's his motor guy. He also races and rides. Nice guy. He was running the bike. I gave him lane choice. It didn't matter to me. I had been in both lanes all night, and I don't stress over lane choice. It is what it is. I'll never cry for a lane because I think that's going to give me an advantage. This thing will go down both. And I say that as I'm about to tell you that the track was a little bit questionable. But again, it could have been my tune-up. It might not have been the track. But I get out about maybe somewhere between 150, 200 foot. It would start knocking the tire off. And the traction control strategy or the time-based timing that I used to kind of keep that under control was trying. But when it does that, it gets into a rev limiter and will let the motor go over. I think I got it set for like 10,000 RPM. It tries to basically stop the wheel speed, get it under control, and then it'll let the bike accelerate once it slows that wheel speed down. So I think I left on him too. There's one video of that from kind of a goofy angle. I think I left early, but I don't want to say I left early and got a big jump on him. I left, he left, and it was close. I think it would have been a really close race if I would have been willing to gamble more and actually put a better tune-up in the bike, but I didn't do that. That was the gamble I took, so I lost that race on, a tuner's choice. And I think the track by that round might have actually taken a hotter tune-up, but like I said, with the noise that I was hearing, and I just didn't want to chance it. We were just going to let it ride. We were going to go as far as we could go, and then after that, we were going to go play with the dog and have some food. And that's where I lost it, was third round. So the bike that beat me, like I said, a super fast bike, ended up going to the final, and they lost to one of the other guys from Indiana. Was super nice dude. He actually won the last event on a different bike. The bike they brought out, I believe they said the first time it saw nitrous was at this event. So I thought they said there was 4 passes on that bike total, and they came out and won an event against, my bike wasn't out of the ordinary for the stuff that showed up for this race. So it was kind of cool to see them win because they're just such nice dudes. But it's cool to finally see like a bike event with one class, not 4 classes to cater to everybody that just wants a class that fits their bike. One class, minimal rules, bring your baddest shit, let's run it. It's $50 to get in. And as long as we can keep bringing out these bad motherfuckers, that cheap entry fee will probably go up, but not to the point that it pushes people out. Because if we can keep bringing these bad bikes, we can start bringing sponsors, and the sponsors will start putting in more money, And actually, there was a good amount of sponsor money to win this event this time. But it's not all about the entry fee to get the payback. If we can get fast bikes and a good show, sponsors notice and want to put their money in. That's how you keep the entry low. But we might, explore the option of, will people pay a little more entry fee to get even more money back? Because $50 is pretty cheap to take, but the whole point is to take a gamble. It's basically a $50 gamble, which I think is funny because a lot of guys that talk about how street and gambly they are won't pay $50 to come out and actually see how fast they are against other stuff. So I find that stuff comical. So with that said, that's kind of the race wrap up. I do have some few pictures of a couple of my passes. But again, no video and minimal photos. The only photos that I actually managed to find were from a couple of the photographers that I actually am kind of friends with, and they more or less do a favor of kind of getting some of the bike pictures. Motion Raceworks has a photographer, Mike Preka. I run a bunch of motion stuff on this, so he kind of jokes around. They don't pay for nothing, they don't sponsor me. They're just awesome people to deal with, and when you call, you get help. When you need parts, it's there. So, he kind of calls this the motion bike. It's because I do run motion stickers, and I've directed quite a few people to Motion Raceworks to get, some of the smaller parts, boost control items and fittings and plumbing and fuel system stuff. You can get it all through them. Again, like I said, not a sponsor, just nice people. I don't have sponsors. I don't take money from anyone to put something on the bike. I run what I run because I like it. And that's why we're into the situation we got here. Bike's been sitting like this now since a couple days after that race is when I started kind of breaking it down and doing post-race maintenance. Still haven't even taken the clutch cover off it yet. Only thing I've done so far is drop the oil pan and pull the oil filter because I know the motor was completely fresh. I wanted to get into the filter and look in the pan and see if there was any debris, anything I need to be concerned about. Like I said, I heard that noise and I wasn't sure if something was actually eating itself alive. You just don't know. So we're going to head into this video now. We're actually going to do some motorcycle work, and I'll show you kind of some of the maintenance items I go through and what I'm looking for, because I did find a couple little things we're going to address and change a little bit. And nothing major, but we're going to get her back into race form, because now that that works and accepts boost like it should, was a problem I was having, I can tow the trailer with it, reliably and faithfully. So let's get into a little walk around. So that was a really long, drawn out intro, I think, but it's been a while. We got a lot of catching up to do. So if you stuck around for a little bit of the chat we got going on here, I know there wasn't really any hands-on technical stuff, but this is where we stand, and hopefully now we can get back into our motorcycle life of going racing once in a while and working on shit. So let's go on some technical stuff now. So this is where we've been sitting for about 4 weeks at this point. I'm going to pull the clutch apart today because I should do another video on how I got this clutch set up from that last MTC clutch breakdown video I did. I've learned a little bit more since that video, and I should probably break down how I actually approach these things. I don't run this bike to 60 foot, a 114 every pass. Our track won't take that. It's not repeatable. We run regular, weeknight prep, no prep type events. The clutch has to work just good. Can't max effort this thing, or you're going to go up there and you're going to knock the tire off or be in traction control the entire time. So I've actually figured out a strategy that works really good if you actually got a hot lap this thing. So past events, I've made 5-6 passes on one clutch without taking it apart or doing anything other than taking the cover off to put a fan on there. There's 3 passes on this now because, like I said, I started that race. We didn't get no test. First round, second round, lost third round. So there's 3 passes on that clutch. We're going to see how it looks. One of the other things I want to change is we're going to get rid of the intake air temp sensor. It's basically an irrelevant piece of data. It's just taking up an input at this point. Because a bike runs on methanol, it doesn't build heat. But because the methanol is introduced down here, in the cylinder head, the cooling effect all takes place, basically in the runner and into the chambers. This is basically reading nothing but hot air coming off the turbo. So that number displayed it's irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything at this point. I could move it up to like the nose, put it in the air duct, and I could get like an ambient air temp reference or something. But it doesn't mean anything. I don't need that data. That's not doing anything to correct nothing. All it shows basically on a pass, if you're looking at data log, is because it's compressed air coming off the turbo into the plenum. All that does is rise throughout the pass. Eventually, when it stops making, maxes out the boost or whatever, it stops rising as fast. But that's all it shows is just a temperature increase. So we're going to unpin that all the way back, and we'll free up an input because I might actually change that to a oil temperature sensor. So we'll see if I get that far yet. I have to pull plenum and valve cover off because we're going to double check valve lash to see if maybe that's where that little valve train noise I was hearing comes from. It wasn't a bad noise. It just was suspicious. It wasn't a random tick every once in a while. It just sounded like top end noise, just like valve clatter. So the valve cover's got to come off anyways because I don't normally put silicone or any kind of case sealer in the corners of those little half moons like the factory does. Never had a problem with them leaking without it. And as I said that, I ended up with a little bit of an oil leak during that race. I had oil kind of trickling down the cases a little bit. I couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and sure as shit, it was the stupid valve cover gas that's leaking. So we're going to address that. I got to clean it. As you can see, there's like a layer of dust. This thing's been sitting in here so long. And what else? There was a couple other odds and ends we're going to go through. We'll figure it out as we go, I guess. That's the event. You should probably look that up and then come attend it because it's a freaking riot. You'll love it. What else? I went through, like I said, I got the oil pan that's already been off and cleaned out. You got the filter. I should probably put this back on and fill it up with oil again, but we'll do the clutch first. If you've never run one of these filters, I recommend these. These are flow filters. It's reusable. Pull them out, clean them, put them back together. What's cool is then you can always see what's going through your motor, or what's trying to. The filter will catch it first, but I love these filters. They're on both of these bikes, this one and that one. The element just goes in there. Trying to do this one-handed. It's spring-loaded. Goes in and turns in there. And then you just throw it on the motor. It's got a magnet. So this is ready to go back on. We'll go through the clutch before I put oil in it just to minimize the mess. But I think what I'm going to start with right now is I'm going to get the plenum and the valve cover off. We'll get that sealed up because then it'll give the case sealer I put in the corners there a little bit of time to dry while I'm going through the clutch. So let's get going on that stuff. Alright, so I got the charge tube is off. Pull the plenum, spark plugs, and coils, and then we'll get the valve cover off and go from there. So I got the valve cover off. Had to move the throttle cables just to get it out. I could have monkeyed with it a little more, but I spent some time actually painting and detailing this thing, and I didn't want to destroy that, get it out. So I just had to move the throttle body cables. No big deal. What I'm going to do now is I dug the batteries out, put my batteries in. We're going to just bump the motor over, and we're just going to check valve lash. We're just looking for anything maybe abnormally loose, kind of explain that extra little noise I was hearing. And then some of you keen-eyed fellers might have noticed the brass plugs in my throttle bodies here. I only run 4 injectors. They're 2200 cc injectors. They will, well, they're going to make about all the power I feel like I can handle at the track we go to for regular no prep and mediocre prep type racing. In my mind, 8 injectors is pointless unless you're making 800 horse and you're going to run XDA type prep at every time you take the bike out. 8 injectors complicates everything. It makes it just harder to tune, harder to get yourself to where you want to be. It's just one extra thing, or actually it's 4 extra things that can go wrong, but 4 injectors do just freaking fine. And then all I did was tap them out, 1/2-inch pipe with some brass plugs, and we just poured them out nice and smooth to match the inside. Did the same. Those are epoxied too, where the top throttle blades would have been, or secondary throttle shaft would have been. Those are all epoxied out and smooth as well. Just, showing you kind of the insides of what makes this thing tick. But yeah, 4 injectors is the way to go. So now we'll go ahead and bump this thing over. We're going to check some lash. So I got the fuel pump unplugged just so we ain't trying to prime the motor. We ain't looking to do anything but bump the motor over right now. So I got my feeler gauges out here. These are for my exhaust side. So these are all the tolerances I'm shooting for. And we're going to start over here. And we're pretty close to where it needs to be to check it. But we're going to bump it a little bit. Right about there ought to get us in the neighborhood. Fumbling around now. That's good. There we go. Check our next one. Make sure we're where we want to be. That one's good. No matter how many times I do this, I'm going to fumble through it every time looking for the right size. That one's good. That one's good. Really all I'm looking for is abnormalities here. Something out of the ordinary. That one's good. Good. That one's a little snug. Now go to the other side of the bike. Tired of fighting with awkward angles. That one's a little tighter than I'd like to see. I don't like how tight this one is right here. All the way over number 4 exhaust. I might reshim that. Might be the noise we're hearing too. That's about 1/4 thou tighter than I'd like. Let's check the intake side real quick. Let's see. Okay, that's acceptable. That's acceptable. Good there. That one's good there. This one's a little tight. We gotta do a little work on our number 4 cylinder here. Yeah. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pull the cams out of this thing, and we're gonna reset exhaust and intake on the number 4 cylinder. I'm confident because of like no debris in the oil. It does compression test good. Leak down's good. I'm confident that it's not a mechanical failure. I think I just, I might have missed on the setup for the lash on those when it was on the bench. Maybe I erred to the side of one or the other that I shouldn't have. So we'll go ahead and we'll correct that. And like I said, if those tolerances are too tight and that valve doesn't totally seal when the engine is hot, you'll get a little bit of a tick and it can resonate. The exhaust doesn't have a direct path, right back to the throttle body into the plenum. But if it's not sealed and it can travel back into the chamber and the intake valve happens to be open a little bit, all it takes is everything to be open just a touch and you'll hear it come back, from the throttle body into the plenum. So it can happen. So we'll go ahead and we'll get this corrected and go from there. So I took a break. I went inside and made some lunch. I had some cod wings. Do you know fish have wings? Anyway, they're pretty good. Little cod bites breaded with some buffalo breading and good stuff. But anyway, I came back out and I got cracking on doing that valve lash correction on the exhaust cam. I didn't film that because it was basically 20 minutes of me cocksuckering this bike, because it's just never easy when you dig into these things when the motor's in the frame to do the cam timing or valve lash cam timing stuff. But I'll show you what I got going on. So it's not impossible to do, it's just hard to film because kind of in just a tight area and you're doing all your work kind of down here between the frame and the sprockets. But you can see down in there. All I did was land on my timing mark, came up here and I marked, there's marks I'm using on the sprockets that don't correlate with anything other than from when I degreed these cams. And then I just marked the chain, zip tied the chain in place, and then back the adjuster off, get slack in the chain, pull the exhaust cam out, change my valve shim. I knew how thin or the thickness I needed to change, and then just kind of line everything back up and put the chain and the cam back in how they were. Take the slack back out, torque the cam back down, roll the motor over, double check my marks. We're good. Like I said, it's not impossible. It's just awkward, hard to film, and we're done. So this is actually corrected back to how I want it. So basically, I'm running about 10 to 11 thou clearance on the exhaust side. So that's what I was shooting for. This one here that was tight was around 6 thou. That's actually closer to an intake cam clearance. But I'm going to double check my intake cam now. I believe there was one here I wanted to change. And then we'll go through that process again, just on the intake side. And then we should be able to button this back up and get our valve cover back on and sealed up.
Love it. St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores.
So I got the cam out. I already did 1 and 2 over here. I'm going to do number 4 now. 5 and 6 were good. 7 was good. 8 was one that I was really concerned about. So last one I got to do is this guy. So I ended up loosening up all the ones I thought were a little tight. I went a couple thou looser. And we'll see what that gets us. Now I'm going to put the cam back in, and then I'll retime everything, and then we'll double check our lash. So, got that figured out. I'm going to go through now and I'm going to check the lash on all of them again. On the intake side, personally, I shoot for probably about 7 to 8 thou clearance. So we'll start with our 7 thou feeler gauge to see if we get that in, and then we'll keep going until we find one that fits. We get number 1 rolled around here. No 8. 8's tight. So I got 7 and 8 thou. So yeah, we're about 7 and 8 thou all the way across. So I'm going to call that good enough to button it up. Got the valve cover back on, all tightened down. We got to redo our throttle cable setup, and it's time to put the whole top end plenum back together, and then we're going to tear into the clutch. I also got to put my oil filter back on. It's back there. So we'll get that back on before I forget. But now we'll throw some more parts at it. So what you saw me do there was put these straps on the plenum. These just keep the plenum from, popping off under boost. But also when I built this charge pipe and everything on here, it was all installed, everything was made to fit on the bike as it sits a certain way. So I have to use these straps now to kind of pull the plenum back into place as to where it was when I tacked and welded up that charge tube. As you can see right now, it doesn't line up quite right. I mean, I can force it in there, but it's close. But what I'll do now is I'll just tweak on these and put tension on these to kind of pull that plenum down now, and that'll line that back up, and we can bolt that up and we're finished with it. So a few little tweaks on the straps, and we got it lined up. And there's an O-ring in there. That's what actually seals this connection, so it's not like tight flush yet. Until we put this clamp on, it's a V-band, so it'll pull that tight. But we're looking good here. Home stretch here before we tear into the clutch. I gotta go ahead and put my scavenge pump back on. Pretty slick little fella here. So what I had to do there is there's a hex drive that drives the scavenge pump off the bolt in the end of the crank. So when you go to thread the pump in, that hex drive turns with the pump, so it's not going to line up with the bolt in the crank just like first try. So I put it in till I feel a little bit of pressure that I know that it's trying to go into that bolt on the end of the crank. So then I just turn the bike on and hit the starter, just bump it a couple times, and you can feel it actually get loose, and then you know it just engaged that drive hex. So that's all that was about there. Got our fittings hooked up, and this is done. So I am determined to take you guys with me through this to the bitter end. We're going to stick around until this thing runs again. And the last thing we got to do before I put oil in it is just look at the clutch. We're going to inspect it, measure it, clean it, and we're going to leave the tune-up alone because I feel I got something really good going on in there that works. Let's get her broke down. So far so good. I like what I'm seeing. I still have yet to go through all that and look at it, but the first thing I try to look for is make sure there's not clutch debris packed into all these grooves going around the clutch basket itself. If you get a lot of clutch wear, it'll destroy a fiber and it throws all the material into these grooves in the basket, and you'll see it'll be a, like I say, I've got nothing on my finger even, be a, a fibery gray grit, almost looks like clutch material. But you just want to make sure that's not in there so nothing's getting built up. But even in the hub itself, oil looks clean still even. So I think we're okay on our clutch tune-up. So whatever wear and tears on those, we'll address it. And if I got to swap out a couple steels and fibers. But this setup is really working pretty good as far as being able to hot lap during a like a no prep type event. Or even if you're just at the track having fun, you want to make a bunch of passes. I'm not a fan of having to do a bunch of clutch maintenance between rounds. When some of these events we go to, you, as the night progresses, or if you go farther into the rounds, you don't get a lot of time and you might not get to go through your clutch. So having a good clutch tune-up that will last and is repeatable without actually destroying the clutch is pretty important. That's why I said earlier that I don't have this clutch dialed in to run, like a 1-teen 60 foot. That type of clutch abuse would require a lot more maintenance than I would have time to do racing this competitively. So anything I might give up in the 60, I can add to the scramble button is basically all it comes down to. So I'll do another video breakdown how I approach this and how I kind of came about this tune-up, but I think it'll be some pretty useful information. But for now, let's get to measuring that and see what we need to replace. So what I'm shooting for here is 1.5 stack height. I've tried thicker, I've tried thinner. This is where I've had my best luck. And just like I said, there's 3 passes on this clutch right now. And we're still at the same stack height. So that tells me I got very minimal clutch wear going on. Which also tells me I'm not putting a ton of power through it. And I'm also only 60 footing. Well, I can look at the data log, but I kind of know what the bike does all the time anyways. It was probably going mid 120s, mid to low 120s on the no prep event. But yeah, the stack height's it's right on. This clutch is probably going to go back in. I'll look at each piece individually now and just look for any wear and tear or smearing. or hair. Apparently there was a piece of hair in there. Even steels. These steels have been in here for probably the majority of the last season. As you can see, they're pretty well seasoned. These don't wear. They don't get thinner. Unless you got like major problem going on. They warp or they get hot spotted from heat. If they're flat, you can reuse them. The discoloring doesn't mean anything. So as long as they ain't overheated and warped, run them. No point in buying extra parts that you don't need to. Now, fiber is all I'm looking for, is to make sure the pads are still mostly intact. Well, completely intact we'd like, but looking for smearing. If it got hot, it'll smear one into the other, and you'll see material in the voids. So all I'm looking for is any kind of smearing or overheated pads. See, this one's got a little bit going on. You see there's a little bit material in between these. Not enough to worry about, I don't think. Not with 3 passes on it. And it's only a couple random little bits. It's probably about as close to normal as I'd like to see. Yeah, I don't see nothing. I didn't really expect to find anything, but never be too sure. We're going to put this right back together and get ready for the next race. Or next test session, whatever. I'm not really a racer. I just test and tune. So, that's it. We're looking pretty good. Nothing caught my eye as suspicious, so we'll put it back together. So now I think it's time that we put oil in it and fire it up. Told you I was going to bring you along until we got this thing running again. So this is going to be a really long video, but I hope you at least hung in till the end and enjoyed some of what I've been doing. Kind of basically this is like first time back working on the bikes. So you haven't missed nothing, but we're back doing post-race maintenance and getting her ready, fixing a couple odds and ends, and get back to the track as soon as we can. So get her oiled up and fired up. All right, I quick double checked. This is what happens when you let the bike sit for a month, but those 2 batteries are the ones I must have raced with. Those are dead. I'll charge them up. I got one, so I can run the bike on 1 battery. It's just easier on 2. This one's showing 16 volts, so we'll use this one to get her cranked over and primed. So let's try this again. Yeah, see it shows 16.5, so we'll crank her over, We're watching oil pressure right here. Gotta see if we can get a glare out of there. It just started to get pressure, so I'll crank it. So 27 pounds cranking, so we're pretty good. Now I'll hook the fuel pump up and we'll prime it and start it. Okay, I'm just gonna wait for the O2 to, there, she's ready. Let's see how fast she stopped. So, you stuck it out this long, and it runs again. I'm actually pretty happy. I think that funky noise that I was hearing, I think it was actually those valve lash was out just a touch, because I'm not hearing it like I did before. So, like I said, there was no evidence in the motor that something mechanically was failing as far as any debris or chunks of anything, like something was broke or knocking a bearing out of it. The motor runs, or still does. It was when I heard this noise. The motor was still running smooth. You could touch and listen to anything you wanted. It was smooth. And it's still smooth, but now that noise is gone, So I think that's what I was hearing, was just some extra, harmonics kind of resonating back maybe into that plenum or something. Can't explain it, but we found something we didn't like and we fixed it, and now I'm not hearing what was making me nervous. So this thing could still all fall apart tomorrow. We'll build another one. But for now, she's about ready to get back to the track. I don't think there's I know I mentioned moving the intake air temp sensor, or actually just getting rid of it. I'll still do that, but there's no point in kind of doing it in the video, because it's going to be literally, it's just a removal. You ain't missing nothing. So I'll go in on that, and then I'll just remove that from the dash too, because I had the dash display in that info. So I'll change some of that up in the software. More laptop work than it is mechanical work. Other than that, I think we're ready to go back to the track. There was one other thing that I think I had talked about. I don't think I ever really showed anybody in one of the videos, but it's from the last season to this season kind of thing. I'll show you what I did. So last time out, this shock was new. It was actually at the last year's last fall MKE race. I was down there on Friday night testing. That was the first night with this shock on the bike. And even when I was in the garage here, trying to baseline kind of set it up, I could never get that shock to act like a shock. It just seemed too stiff. No matter what I did, if I started taking spring out of it, get to the point where it was just dropping to ride height. So there was no preload on that spring. I could not make this shock work. We went to the track Friday night. We're testing. We tried everything under the sun to make this shock work, and it wasn't happening. I talked to Cole at LKG Suspension. He's a godsend, because we figured out that from the shock I had, it was a M2. I had worked with it and got it to work, but again, that shock, when it showed up, it did not want to act like a shock. Well, there's a common denominator in between that shock and this shock. I went to this because I wanted a lighter, no reservoir, just a real simple, lightweight shock. And people are going real fast on these shocks. So that time at the track, I was actually working with Cole on the phone, and he was giving me some settings to try. And I was sending him videos, and I was just telling him, like, it's not responding to anything. It's not working. And that's when we actually wrecked the cylinder head. So we never made any progress on this. But we came to the conclusion that the lower link was basically not happy. That's an Adams link. I got that when I bought the M2 shock, and it basically makes the shock act stiffer than it really is. I don't know why I received that, or I don't know why that was comboed up with the shock I previously had on the bike, because it didn't work right on that either. So when I put it on this bike, when I put this combo together and it still didn't work, well, we kind of narrowed it down to Cole basically was saying that shock is just, or that lower link is basically what's kind of monkeying with my setup here. It's just making everything act a little too stiff. And Cole had mentioned that he kind of bases his settings off of the DME flat link that's got 2 points. And this is a 3-point link that's more, it's flat link, but it's closer to a stock setup. As far as the shock goes to one hole and the links go to another hole. Well, the DME link works a little differently. Well, that's a pricey link. Well, I decided that since I like to monkey with stuff and I happen to own some tools, that what I did here, I'll get you in here real close like, is this location up here is the original deal. How this was set up is this is where the links went. The shock was supposed to be back here. And that's why it wasn't real happy. So what I did was, with a combination of modifying this lower link and some new sleeves and spacers I kind of came up with, we got the shock and the links onto the same point. And that no prep race I was just at was the first race since I made this change over winter, because like I said, we had wrecked that motor, never got to do anything after that. I made all these changes over winter. First try, I baselined it in the garage, just got kind of set up how I thought would be how a shock should work. And goddamn it, this thing didn't go out and just fucking shit and get first try. So we nailed it. And this option, I have basically 4 possible combinations of shock and link setups. I can move the shock back to this hole and leave the links where they are. I can move the shock and the links back to this hole and make the bike, really soft. or I can move them all forward, or I can move a combination of the links back here and the shocks forward. Like, you know, that really wouldn't be a ideal one, but I can make this thing act however I want. And going by, you know, some measurements I got, this is about where I'm going to keep it. So I just thought it was kind of slick. I'd show you guys that you can monkey with stuff. Just because it shows up one way doesn't mean you can't make it a different way. And I'm pretty thrilled that it all worked how it did, because that no prep MKE race that we just ran, it definitely wasn't losing the races in the 60 foot. Well, that, my friends, is a wrap. So, first video back in bike stuff in a while. So I hope that was satisfactory. Not a whole lot of tech going on, but just kind of what it's all about, is getting out in the garage and just hunkering down. So if you got questions on stuff, or you saw something that stood out you want to talk about, shoot me a message. Talk about anything you see on here. I'm going to probably do another breakdown on that clutch setup. I get a lot of messages based off that first video that I posted about kind of a simple breakdown on one of these clutches and how they work. I think I'm going to do another video on basically what I've even changed since that video and how I approach setting that clutch up. So again, I'm not an expert. It may not work for everybody, but I think I stumbled into something that I can at least make it make sense to people, that they won't be afraid to try something. A lot of people get stuck in a rut with things not working well because they're using what somebody else told them to use that worked well for them. That stuff doesn't always transfer over. So for now, I'm gonna go put a video together for you guys to watch. So I'm guessing this is gonna be about an hour long. So if you stuck through it, thanks for all the hardcores that keep watching and liking. So it's been fun.